All right, it's Lucas from the Livewire, back again with another interview, this time with vocalist, guitarist, and producer extraordinaire Josh Middleton from Sylosis. How are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
No, good stuff, and I appreciate you taking the time out to have a chat. So I guess first things first is it's been a while since you've been to Australia with Sylosis. Not only that,
Yeah,
but doing the first headline tour I think ever of the country with Angel
yeah,
Maker. So how's that going to be? Are you excited to come out?
very. Yeah, Australia
Yeah.
is genuinely like favorite places to play. Food, coffee, people, the shows, the weather, everything is amazing. It just sucks the travel getting there. But
No, I can
yeah,
empathise with. I can empathise with that. I was over in the States last year, and the one thing that sucks about about going around and traveling is the travel part. So,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
And real quick as well, so Angel Maker, I saw are going to be on the support for the lineup, but I don't really know much about them. I tend to kind of like, I guess, let my opinion of a band speak from the live performance. Can you give us any kind of like, hints of how they come about the tour and the connection with the band?
I mean, there isn't really any connection with us directly. We don't know them. We're just kind of looking for bands that were heavy that might offer something different as well, like a different sound to Sylosis, kind of broaden the spectrum. And yeah, we're stoked that they're joining us.
Hell yeah,
And I
super
think that
psyched.
I was going to
Uh,
say, I think that pretty much local supporters as well.
yeah, hell yeah. I mean, have you guys got anything lined up for locals yet, or?
Not that I know of, but I don't think we'll be aware of that until we're at each show. I think.
Yeah, much closer. So obviously this tour has come off the back of the new record, A Sign of Things to Come. Record dropped last year. I don't want to get, I guess, too deep into the departure from Architects, despite everything obviously being on good terms. But how is it kind of to come back to Sylosis with a singular focus to write an album and not have to think about it, kind of anything else in the peripheral, and just have kind of one goal and one idea to make the best record possible?
Well, admittedly, it was all written when I was still in Architects,
Oh,
because it
cool.
came out for last year. I was out of the band in April last year, but we had finished it 2022. I think we'd finished the mix. So I was in both bands at the same time. But we've had the whole pandemic situation meant I wasn't going anywhere and touring with Architects, so I had tons of time to write the record, write the Architects records at the same time. Um, so yeah, I'm quite fortunate that at the time it was kind of easy to juggle both because no one was touring, obviously
Yeah.
during COVID. But yeah, now it's a lot easier to just think of one band and not worry about conflicting schedules and that kind of stuff. At least for me.
Yeah, hell yeah. This new record too. Like, I'll be honest. When I heard it for the first time, I kind of like when I like to listen to a record, I kind of sit down and I just kind of like to take it in. I don't like to play the comparison game a lot, but when I sat down and like listened to it and kind of had that first listen, I got this feeling of like the first time I heard "The Blackening" by Machine Head, and I consider that one of the best albums ever written. And I got that exact vibe from this
Cool.
record, and ever since then, it has just grown on me. I think it's one of the best records that was potentially out of the last 12 months. So massive achievement on that record. When putting the record together though, because there was a few, like, I guess whether like subconscious or not, there were different styles of like different bands that I kind of picked up through the music. Like Thorns, for example, has a very, very deep, like In Flames kind of feel to it. Absent again kind of has a like a darkness within Machine Head kind of sound to it. So was there any inspirations that you had while writing the record that you were like listening to stuff at the time and like kind of maybe leaked in a little?
Thorns was definitely heavily inspired by Typo Negative. In fact, it was kind of the working title just because Typo Negative's association with like having thorns on the cover of is it October Rust. So that yeah, Typo Negative's a band I've been into a long time and never really found its way into Sylosis as much. And then Absent, yeah, I love stuff like Nine Inch Nails, and admittedly, forget the name of the song. Um, Something on Iowa that's like a really like moody one towards like the end of the album. I don't know if
Of
it's like this or something. Iowa by Slipknot.
Slipknot, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean
like
the title track's like 14 minutes long, I think, and that's
yeah,
pretty moody.
not, but that kind of thing. So we were trying to, because in the past we've done like acoustic songs and we stuck them at the end of the album, and we wanted the song was written like an acoustic song again, but I wanted to try and do something different, so it's a bit more of an industrial, moody, atmospheric thing rather than just like me and an acoustic guitar. So that was a bit different, but for the
Yeah.
most part, like I think there are influences that we had back in the day when the band started, and we put out like a documentary about the early days recently, where um, this album is closer to when we started as kids, like what we were listening to then, and we got a bit. I don't want to say sidetracked or gone off on the wrong path, but when the band started, it was all about like Iowa by Slipknot and the intensity and how heavy it was. And the, another band that I looked up to or like really wanted to emulate was Pantera, and the fact they got heavier and heavier with every album. And like for me, my favorite Pantera is like Far Beyond Driven and Great Something Tranquil, like the height of their heaviness. So I wanted to kind of amplify the more heavy elements of the band for this one. And we've always had kind of like more interesting arrangements, I guess, but I still wanted it to feel like a classic metal record and put a lot of attention on the hooks and being memorable at the same time as being heavy.
Yeah, and again, like I don't want to kind of draw back more, but the Machine Head comparison, I guess there's a lot of like in Pantera as well, a lot of groovy riffs on this record, a lot of cool solos.
Yes, yeah, I think that's something we found. Like I love like super heavy, chunky riffs, and always been a fan of like Hatebreed and that kind of thing. I think when we put out our first record or the first two records, we really didn't want to be compared to like all the metalcore that was coming out at that time. So we kind of took like this knee-jerk reaction of just being like tuning our guitars up to E standard and not playing that resembled a breakdown to try and set ourselves apart and be like, no, we're a proper metal band. Having said that, that meant I was too scared to like write anything that would be even remotely close to a breakdown, and we just have all these songs that were just like fast thrash. And a lot of people are like, oh, what's all this chugging? And I was just like, well, I just don't care now. If people want to call us metalcore, I don't care. I know that we're not a metalcore band, but you look at Pantera, all that chuggy, heavy stuff, and Machine Head as well. Yeah, that's just come out a lot more on this new record. But that's always been that was like what the band started with. So we're just not afraid to do it now, because I think the metal genre as a whole and metal fans are a lot more open-minded. I think 20 years ago when metalcore and deathcore was coming out, the more like elitist approach was like, oh, this isn't proper metal, and we kind of wanted to appeal to those people because like, I grew up super into like death metal and thrash, and I kind of understood that mentality to some degree. So I really wanted to make sure that we were accepted by real metal fans. But now, if they think we have anything that sounds like a breakdown, I just don't care. So yeah, that's why there's a lot more like druggy riffs like Pantera and Machine Head.
Yeah, yeah. And then something else, I guess, too. Like this record too is like the shortest in length compared to the rest of the catalog. A lot of longer songs that you were doing, and I guess that kind of is where that sort of appeal to like the purest metalhead, I guess you could say, is doing these big, long, dramatic songs. Was this kind of like an idea of like, let's do something that's short, sweet, punchy, to the point? Let's just get 10 songs out there and just kick ass with these 10 songs rather than kind of going with these big epics.
Definitely, yeah. And I think I don't have the attention span to listen to like progressive music. I don't listen to anything remotely progressive. So like, why would I keep doing that? And I love Injustice for All, and I love Symbolic by Death. And you say The Blackening by Machine Head. These like long song albums. I really like them all, but I think we found that playing them live was kind of like, we play a festival where we have 30 minutes. And when you've got 6-7 minute long songs, you're like, oh, we can only play like 5 songs. And we're not giving much variety, and it's not as fun to play when the songs have been going on and on. And so it was, yeah, I still want our songs to be like full of riffs, just like packed to the gills with like as much excitement and interesting things and twists and turns and that kind of stuff. But just try and keep it less than 4.5 minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like there's a lot of great songs on here that are like real punchy, like I said, to the point. Just 6 songs. There's one song on there that's really interesting, and I saw an interview you did with Kerrang about the actual title track of the song, "Sign of Things to Come," where it was like the last song that was written for the record. So what kind of happened there? Was it just something that was like the last minute decision, or?
Um, it was just, yeah, one of the last songs written for the record. It just came about. I think that usually happens. Like sometimes you end up having like the best songs just come out last minute. I think to go back to Architects, like the last song that I wrote for the last Architects record was When We Were Young. I literally wrote all the music for that one in like an hour, and that became the first single for that one. And Animals was the last minute song for the album before. And like I sent it down to Dan. He changed a bunch, wrote some stuff for it, sent it back the next day, and that became the first single for that one. So there's like a habit or a pattern where I think it happens to a lot of bands. You just kind of get this last minute bit of inspiration, or like something just comes out really naturally. And usually when a song comes out so effortlessly and just so quickly, it's almost as if you didn't write it. Those songs are usually good ones, exciting ones.
Yeah. I guess speaking on those three specific songs you mentioned, "When We're Young," "Animals," and "Sign of Things to Come," I'll be honest, they're probably three of the best songs on each of those respective records. So that's a fun thing to know. Again, it's that last minute inspo.
Yeah, and like I said, like without trying to sound cocky about it, it sometimes like it genuinely feels like you're just it's come out of nowhere, or like not to get a bit too like woo woo, but you're like channeling something. It does sometimes when songs just come out that quickly. It's like hard to almost take credit for them, but I will.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, it's got to mean something, so I got to get it out there.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, with the tour, you guys are going to be making your first tour back to Australia in 12 years. The only time you guys have actually been to Australia was doing Soundwave back in 2013, which, I'll be honest, that year you guys were on was crazy. Just in that year,
Yes.
right, was Metallica, Blink-182, Linkin Park, Offspring, A Perfect Circle, Paramore, Slayer, Cypress Hill. The list is crazy for that show. Was there any kind of cool stories that came out of doing that? Not only, I guess, as like a big festival with all these crazy bands, but then it being your first time in Australia, like any kind of cool things that happened?
So night one, Metallica threw a barbecue just for the band, and they were like, "No crew allowed, no, just if you're in the band, you can come." So that was cool. Admittedly, I'm such a big Metallica fan that they were all like walking around being really social, and I was kind of just avoiding them because I was like, "I'm just going to make an ass out of myself, and they're going to think I'm a nerd." So I'm just going to avoid it. So that was cool. Just had a great time in general in Australia. Had a shark scare in Perth. Like the alarm went off on the beach,
Oh,
everyone out of the water. We could see it in the shallows. It was like a big tiger shark. So
jeez.
there was a lot of memorable stuff. And yeah, like every you'd fly like private chartered flights. They weren't private jets, they were just regular, I guess, Qantas planes that were just for the festival. So you'd be on a plane with all the other bands. Um, you know, getting to hang out with, yeah, all kinds of people. Nothing too crazy, but just it was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
hell of a tour. Now, obviously, like I said, 11 years between shows. Obviously, since that tour, you've dropped now 3 albums, including the album we've already talked about. There's also Dormant Heart and Cycle of Suffering. Is there anything you're kind of looking at maybe putting into the set, going back to those records and kind of exploring songs maybe you haven't touched for a few years?
We should do. We'll see. Admittedly, as I said, like the new record just was written with that in mind a bit more, like playing them live, and that's just even I think even people that are fans of like obsessed with like the first record or whatever it may be, I think even they can kind of see live that the new ones just have so much more energy and go down better live than anything else we've done. That it's hard to take out one of these new songs that just kills live for something old that might appeal to 5 people in the crowd. Having
Yeah,
said that, we do try and we always do want to try and get every base covered, play a song from every album, especially when it's a headline. So we don't want to leave people out. We don't want our fans to not be happy, but we're also making up for Cycle of Suffering because that record came out 2 weeks before the pandemic hit and we went into full lockdown, so we never got to tour that record either. Um, And just in terms of what we're familiar with, dipping into Dormant Heart might be a bit. There might be some songs to refresh because we always play stuff off the first two records, but those middle ones don't always get a look in.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Sylosis is going to be hitting Australia, all major capital cities in February 2025. If you haven't checked out Sign of Things to Come yet, please do check it out. And again, incredible record. Congrats on all the success on it. Appreciate you taking the time to chat, and all the best, and we'll see you in February.
Thank you so much. Yeah, really appreciate it.